I wanted to open up with this prayer, and this prayer has become one of the richest prayers I have ever read, and it comes through Joyce, who sends me many, many prayers. And this is written by a French priest, Michel Quist, and he's I believe, a Jesuit. No, what is he? What flavor?
It's not JC. It's not Jesuit.
What do you know? What flavor? It doesn't matter.
I'll tell you later.
Okay. Tell me later. It doesn't matter. But this prayer is called the sea. Lord, I saw the sea attacking the rocks, somber and raging. From afar, the waves gained momentum. High and proud, they leapt, jostling one another to be the first to strike. When the white foam drew back, leaving the rock clear, they gathered themselves to rush forward again. The other day I saw the sea calm and serene. The waves came from afar, creeping, not to draw attention. Quietly holding hands, they slipped noiselessly and stretched at full length on the sand to touch the shore with the tips of their beautiful soft fingers. The sun gently caressed them, and they generously returned streams of light. Lord, grant that I may avoid useless quarrels that tire and wound without achieving results. Keep me from these angry outbursts that draw attention but leave one uselessly weakened. Keep me from wanting to always outstrip others in my conceit, crushing those in my way. Wipe from my face the look of dark, dominating anger. Rather, Lord, grant that I may live my days calmly and fully as the sea covers the whole shore. Make me humble like the sea, as silently and gently it spreads out unnoticed. May I wait for my brothers and sisters and match my pace to theirs, that I may move upward with them. Grant me the triumphant perseverance of the waters. May each of my retreats turn into an advance. Give my face the light of clear waters. Give my soul the whiteness of foam. Illumine my life that it may sing like sunbeams on the surface of the sea. But above all, Lord, may I not keep this light for myself. And may all those who come near me return home eager to bathe in your grace. That's a prayer. I love that prayer. Okay. So, this is a big subject, and I thought, where do I begin with the subject of transformation? Because it's it's huge. And I thought, now many of you have heard me talk about aspects of this. Do I hear music?
Yes.
Why do I hear music?
In the background. They have to turn it off. Ask the hotel to turn it off.
Okay, well, we can't control the hotel, Joyce. I would love to be able to do that, but I think even I have limits. It's hard to consider that, but
Turn the mic off here.
I don't know, and we'll ignore it. No, we don't hear it anymore.
Good work.
And so it shall be, Joyce. Anyway, that was the first time ever in all my teaching here that I heard music in this room. I've never had that. Okay. So when I was thinking about transformation, and I gave this a lot of thought because I have thought about writing about this subject and et cetera for a long time. One of the aspects that occurred to me is how often the subject is treated as an interior process to the exclusion of what's happening in the world around you. In other words, as we discuss the nature of transformation, and I want to position it as a mystical journey, we have to understand that the whole planet is undergoing a mystical journey of transforming. And what is transforming? And that we are transforming within a larger sphere of what is transforming. And that we are part of something greater that's going on. And that the choice to transform is actually not ours. In other words, the organic dynamic of transformation that is already in motion we are part of it by virtue of what is taking place at this time in history. So it's important to understand this time in history. It's very important to understand that. It's very important to understand what is happening in this particular time in human civilization. It's important to understand how consciousness is opening and actually shifting, and how that is sweeping the whole world and actually reshaping everything from our relationship to physical time, to actual time. And how that is transforming. I mean, what is actually getting transformed? Actually, our relationship to time itself. And that is affecting everything from the financial markets, the speed at which they are collapsing, and the speed at which people think they should be making money. Absolutely everything is getting transformed. The boundaries of nations, the mythologies in the heavens about God. There's the collision of the gods. The ending of religions. They are coming to a close. Christianity is closing down. You have to understand what is actually getting transformed and what it means. The end of the fossil age is getting transformed. The way that we have used money is getting transformed. The way we have educated our children is getting transformed. Traditional education is shifting to internet education. They're not going to learn the humanities the way they used to. These are now getting transformed into inadequate. And what is essential now is techno education. The degree to which the familiar world is getting dismantled is awesome. I do not mean awesome in the wow, isn't that wonderful? Rather, it is so overwhelming that it is immeasurable. What is getting transformed includes the types of illnesses we are now susceptible to. What is in our drinking water are all the unused drugs from hospitals, all the drugs from people's medicine cabinets. There are so much drugs in the water that you're taking. It's a wonder your immune system can function at all. Much less the drugs that go into the water, from the rain, that are just spread upon the land now. The pharmaceutical companies own the water systems. Yes, everything's getting transformed, if not mutated. There's mutation, and then there's morphing, and then there's transformation. There's so much that we have to understand about what is taking place here, so that you understand what the choices of response are. And I want to position this within the environment, the external environment, within your internal environment. And I have asked Ellen Gunter to do a presentation because she's an expert on eco-spirituality. She was accepted into Al Gore's school, and she did his training. And I asked her if she would do the Al Gore presentation, and also on her work. She's the author of a wonderful book called Reunion. And I asked her if she would do a presentation tomorrow, because we have to understand what is happening in our earth and in our global community. And nobody speaks better about it than her. And I'm not just saying that because she's one of the people I love most in the world, but because I truly know her to be a superb scholar. And her presentation needs to be included because the earth is the largest living being we know. we rely upon this earth, and everything happening within the global village is happening to us and in us, because I need to teach the mystical laws within transformation this weekend, so that there really is this understanding that what happens in the one is actually happening in the whole. What happens in you is happening in the whole. That this is one and the same thing. That there is nothing separate from what's happening in this world. That though we may want to say, I don't want to know anything about that, that response is not a protection. That's like a nuclear fallout saying that if I shut my, remember when they said put duct tape around your window? Well, it's not going to help you. Saying that you don't want to watch the news is like putting duct tape around your psychic field. It's not going to stop the fallout from what's happening in our world today, from what's getting transformed. And what you need to understand as well as part of this is that we've also entered the age of the psyche and the soul, which has opened up your inner senses and has made you, has awakened you intuitively, spiritually, in an inner way that has, the way intuition and interior voice has been positioned is that it's all about receiving guidance for you, always for you, only for you. And that is somewhat like a child would position it. It also makes you enormously sensitive to the greater field around you. Now, as I describe the stages of transformation, which we'll get to, there's a critical stage of transition, which is extraordinarily traumatic and difficult, but it's that stage that puts a kind of wiring in place that helps a person carry the weight of the world, as they say, on their shoulders. It helps you to withstand the realization of what's going on in the world and not be crushed by the little ego that says, I have to do everything. No, you don't. You have to do what you're called to do. You only have to do your calling, but your calling, if you understand that if you do your calling, what is in one is in the whole. What you do is enough, just do it. It's not for you to know how your life is effective, or why your life is effective, or how much your life is effective. What you need to do is what you've been called to do. That's it. But this is a very different type of ego. It's a much more refined ego to live at that altitude of the mystical consciousness that says, I am what I do fully, all my actions contribute to the grid. I'm on the grid, the mystical grid. That's how you're going to think of it. I'm on the mystical grid. Everything I do is grace on the grid, grace on the grid, grace on the grid. And it contributes to this transformation. And that's how you're going to see it, as contributing grace on the grid. The ordinary mind, the ordinary mortal, has to see something big in front of their eyes in order to think that that is, and they have to have credit for it. But that's the person under the third stage of transformation. So before I go any further here, I wanted to have Jim describe the movies that he's showing, because I love the movies that he's showing to support this. Would you mind?
Here's how the mystery of this container works. The poem that Joyce gave Carolyn, that Carolyn read this morning about the sea, perfectly describes the movie we're going to watch tonight, The Way. It could not, we could take stanza by stanza of that prayer and apply it to the movie. The Way is, I don't know if any of you know about Santiago what is it called? Santiago Compostela. It's a pilgrimage that people make along the coast of Spain to the church where the Apostle St. James is thought to be, where his remains are thought to be buried. And Carolyn and I were in India with several of the other people in this room, and the guide told us that a pilgrimage is a difficult journey undertaken with intention. And that's what this weekend is. It's you're on a pilgrimage. You're not leaving the room, but you're on a pilgrimage of the soul here. And this movie follows a lot of people, but 4 in particular, who are making this pilgrimage all for different reasons. The fun for me is it's a spiritual Wizard of Oz in a way, because the 4 people are Dorothy and the other 3. That's what we're watching tonight. Just a very personal spiritual movie. It stars Martin Sheen and was directed by his son Emilio Estevez. Tomorrow night, we're most likely watching, if I finish it in time, we're most likely watching the best, Best Marigold Hotel, the most exotic Best Marigold Hotel.
For elderly or?
For the elderly and beautiful. I am moving there. But
if you can remember.
What I love though, I was working on it last night, and he's trying to explain, the young man who has the hotel is trying to explain, but you see everybody's outsourcing their elderly because they don't like them. This is not just Britain, but what's
outsourcing the elderly.
What's so exquisite about this movie is that it demonstrates that this journey continues until our last breath, and that we're not immune to transformation. You can't say, I've done my share for this lifetime, leave me alone, because you don't get to choose that part. And that movie, as Carolyn was saying, the movie really illustrates that beautifully. So that's what we're doing. Unless we watch Salmon Fishing in the Yemen, which we'll do if I can't finish Exotic Marigold Hotel in time. Okay.
I love that. Did you see Salmon Fishing in Yemen? I love that movie.
Yeah. Yes, on that very screen. 7:30 tonight, and 7:30 tomorrow night. Okay.
Okay, so how many of you have never been to a CMED? It didn't occur to me that there could be one person here. Well, welcome. Oh, my word, hello. Visitors. Virgins. Welcome. How nice to have you. Well, thank you. Wow, okay. Oh, I will. I will. I won't. I shan't. What I need to do then is I would like to start with a kind of a lecture in the higher altitudes in the imagination. And one way to think about this is I've oftentimes started a lecture. I put oatmeal on my pants this morning. I didn't mean to do that, but it's stained. One way to think about this is simple analogies or simple examples or simple images oftentimes serve me very well because I can't draw. And this works. I sometimes tell people to imagine their world as an apartment building, and here's the penthouse. And every floor is a different level of consciousness, so that your building never changes. But the level on which you live, everything you see is very, very different. Your furniture is different. Your neighbors are different. The altitude's different. The rent is different. Everything changes, but nothing changes. Everything changes, but nothing changes. The exterior doesn't change at all. So no one knows that you've done so much changing on the inside. By looking at the outside, nobody knows you've done so much transitioning on the inside. They have no idea. You've changed your furniture, you've changed your floor, you've changed your perspective. You now can go from in the basement where you thought you were the only person in the world and you were in charge of everything. But the thing that keeps happening is you keep finding back staircases and doors. And every time you do, you think, should I open it? Dare I open it? Should I? Dare I? Should I? Dare I? But there's this Pandora thing in you. I've got to open it. I've got to, I've got to, I've got to, I've got to. It will be the death of you. And every single time you open it and you go up and you see this new floor, there's this sense of extraordinary excitement and incredible dread. Because you know you can never, Thomas Wolfe, go home again. And you have to, in a sense, I hear that music again. Is that somebody's phone? Okay. Okay. They will get a visitation from me and it won't be pretty. Anyway, when you go down, well, never mind, I can ignore that. When you go down to the lower level, you have a sense, I am going to leave this world behind. I will leave this world behind. All the familiar landscape, the way I saw the world, the view from this floor, so familiar to me. The furniture on this floor, so familiar and so comfortable. Not all, but some of it. But I can't take any of it with me. And I don't get to preview this floor and then come back here and decide. I just have to trust that the next floor, which is more expensive, I got to trust that it's going to cost me more. I got to trust that the price is going to be worth it. I don't get to preview. I just have to trust that if the price is so expensive, what I can see from there has got to be worth it. Because who would charge such an outrageous price to it's got to be worth it. Now I get up to this floor and lo and behold, it is worth it. But I notice fewer and fewer neighbors because it gets more and more expensive as I go up here. And it becomes more and more difficult to describe down here what it looks like up here. The air is cleaner. The vista is more beautiful. There's more tranquility, and I can understand things more. I have more think time, or the way I think is different. I get a much bigger view of life. I see that all things seem to function together. I'm out of the basement, so it's not just me. On this floor, I just see people on my own street. On this floor, it's just people in my own hood. But as the higher I get, I see that huge nations are interconnected. Species are interconnected. We can't move anywhere without everything. And it's when I get up to the penthouse, it's an archetypal mythic force. Myths are interconnected. Cultural myths are interconnected. Jihad is interconnected with Armageddon. With it, they talk to each other. Myths do not operate independent. Even they are interconnected. Even they are interconnected. Mythologies, spiritual mythologies. A thought form is released on a parchment. Is Jesus married? That one possibility is shattering. In the meantime, the galactic theology is being developed in the Vatican. Why? Because they know there's life on other planets. Why? Because there's been contact. So they're preparing galactic theology. Why? Because they know the end of Earth-centric theology has come. You cannot have an Earth-centric God anymore. Even that mythology has come to an end. The mythologies that are getting dismantled and transformed are spectacular. They're cosmic. They're bloody cosmic. Every cosmic mythology is coming down. Every one of them. And you think it's going to be a big deal to find out there's no Christmas, right? I mean, it is like gargantuan. Every single myth that has held up humanity is coming down. And you're living to see it. You won't see the myths go up, but you will see them come down. Because we're not going to live long enough to see what will replace these. We won't live that. That's not for us. But we will see the dismantling, which is why we will live the toil, the trauma, the turmoil. We will live that. Because that's what happens when myths come down. The transformation. Nobody gives up a myth without a fight. Nobody. So I'm just going to hit a pause button here. And I'm going to tell you that we're going to go into your myths, and the ones you will not give up, you will not. No, you won't. It doesn't matter how smart and educated and cute and wonderful, you are clinging to myths that are absolute nonsense, and you know they are myths. But by God, you are not ready to let them go. It's not going to happen. And it could be you're the smartest person, and that's all there's to it. It could be when I deal with people who are ill or whatever, and they'll say, I can't believe this happened to me. And who should it happen to? Well, not me. Well, then pick somebody else. But the myth is, I don't get sick. Other people do, but I do not. That's not an option. Because I am, you are what? I am more special. I am more privileged. I am, what's your myth? You've got it, and there it is. I mean, the mythology is huge. I don't have bad things happen to me. Why? Because I am, what's your myth? Spectacular. Good person. Bad things don't happen to good people like me. I will always have, what will you always have? Money. Why? Because I am protected. Says who? That's my myth. And God knows it, though. I have a covenant with the God of money. These are all mythologies. There's no truth to any of them. Zero. Zero. Anything can happen to any of you at any time. Knock it off. You are not protected by any of these things. You can have all the money in the world and be gone tomorrow. One girl said to me, oh no, my money's in a trust fund. And I thought, yeah? Yeah? Look at me and say 3 times, Enron, Enron, Enron. I mean, I'm not comforted by what I'm teaching, I have to tell you. Don't think I'm not subject to this same stuff, right? Yeah, hello. I would love to be able to teach you something else, but it's simply not truth. It's simply not truth. Mythologies are mythologies, and we all have them. Okay? But what we are living is the end of some of the greatest mythologies that have ever held together humanity, which is why when we talk about transformation, this just isn't our personal transformation. Every single species are, was it this morning? I can't remember. 5 o'clock this morning. I get up at 4:30 for CMED. But Fukushima doesn't know what to do with its nuclear water. It's poisoned water. It has no idea what to do with it. Well, you know what? They're pouring it into the ocean, right? You know that, right? Hello. And so they're nuking the ocean, which means they're nuking everything. And it's just pouring in. It's just pouring in. And I mean, if humanity was empowered, they would scream around the planet in one loud voice, no more nuclear power of any sort. No more weapons, no more nuclear. Stop it. Stop it. What sort of species nukes itself? You know, but we have grown incredibly numb. We have grown very numb. And that's one of the things, there's such a thing as the other side of transformation. So I'm going to hit a pause button here, and I'm going to throw out a question. And that question is, do you feel like your own life is undergoing, an active changes? Are you in a season of active change? Is how I would put it. Okay. And do you find that the active changes are something that for you is out of your control or self-initiated? So, out of control changes. Hands up. Out of control changes. Okay. For the out of control changes, are they what you would call terrifying, frightening, nerve-wracking? Yes. For some, yes, no. Give me the terror look. Any of you frightened by them? Okay, you are. Okay. Depends on the election. Well, either way, it's terror. Either way, it's terror. Because we'll talk about what's happening in the United States, but either way. But especially one would be a lot worse than the other, but either way. But okay. But I'm not sure that's true either. I mean, I just think cycles are in motion. Let's just put it this way. Cycles are in motion. Cycles, we have to understand cycles are in motion. But we'll talk about that. Okay, how many of you feel like you're at a place of tranquility and there is no change happening at all? 0. Okay. How many of you have a sense of impending something in the air? Do you feel like something in the world is shifting, but you can't feel that, you can't identify it? Do you feel like there's a sense like one thing's going to happen or many things? What's your sense? Many things. Okay, what do you sense? Just out of curiosity. Yeah, Betty.
I think the air is going to be much more polluted.
The air is going to be more polluted?
Well, more than this now.
Okay.
I think it's really going to take place.
Okay, air. What else do we have?
Revolution.
Yeah. Revolution. What kind? What are you thinking?
I think people are going to revolt against some of the changes that are coming out, and I think there's going to be a lot of chaos and revolution.
Chaos and revolution in the streets. Okay, what else have I got? Yes. I'm sorry?
People are going to be able to communicate.
Wait,
more.
grab the microphone, please.
I think simplification is coming. So the dissolving of barriers and easier communication, coming to a common place, the merging of languages and community.
How's it going to get there? How's that going to happen?
Well, I think it's up to us and some people to really pioneer some changes and
And what are you
model
going to
the
do
way.
with the people that don't want that to happen?
Help them through it. I mean, they may
Picture
not
the
want it to
South.
happen, but it's,
Picture the South.
yeah. I mean, we've got to provide a safe haven and comfort and instill them with trust that it is for the best that things are changing.
Okay, I love your optimism. Love it. I'm not gonna rain on that parade. I love it. You're at least 30 years younger than me. Okay, go.
For me, I feel
Wait a minute. Microphone. Yeah.
I feel a tremendous sense that as a human race, we have so abused and depleted this beautiful earth. And that with all the climatic changes, the tsunamis, the eruptions, the oil spill in the Gulf, all of these things, that the earth is now at a point where it has to preserve itself. And I pray every day that it has the strength to do that. And that it may have to shed us in some way for it to maintain balance and survive in the universe.
Well,
So that's sort of been my underlying tension.
well, I can assure you that we take ourselves far more importantly than the Earth does.
That's what I believe that
we're
it should.
just another species, but we don't get that.
Exactly.
We don't get that. We're just another species. We just don't get that we're just another species. Somehow we've separated ourselves from nature so that we think there's nature over there. I think I'm going into nature. You are nature. Where are you going? I think I'm going into nature. Well, where is that exactly? Are you out of nature if you're standing here on the street? Yes, nature's a tree. I have to go and see a tree, otherwise I'm not in nature. Well, what about the air? We have so separated ourselves that we can't see nature unless we're standing in a desert or a tree or a natural forest or something. Otherwise, we have no concept that we're actually standing on a living earth that is nature. Much less ourselves, that we ourselves are part of the cycle of species. So, okay, but you all have a sense that change is in the air. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to enter into this subject through the penthouse. So I'm going to put you in your penthouse. But here are the rules of the penthouse. Now, the penthouse has its own rules, okay? And it's very hard to stay in the penthouse. You can slip out very easy. So I have to talk to you about the penthouse. No, you have to leave your wallets behind. You have to leave them on the floor below. You can't bring your identification in there. You cannot bring your name, your personality, your background. You cannot bring your religion. God forbid. You cannot bring anything about yourself into the penthouse. You have to go in as a blank slate. You can't go in with this idea that you have any idea of how the world is and that's the way it is. So what you have to do is kind of go in with this open mind. You have to leave your mind at the door and go in with this sense of openness. Like, I have no idea how the world works. I'm going to start all over again. I'm going to start all over again. I'm wide open. I am just wide open. Just wide open. I am here to observe human beings on planet Earth, and that's all there's to it. Okay, have we got a deal? So when we're in the penthouse, we're in a world of observation, of observing what's happening on the earth, of observing how the earth operates in the greater sphere, how events unfold, why they unfold as they do. What creates events? What creates history? What are the great change agents? Things just don't happen. They just don't happen. There's a reason why things happen as they do. There are reasons, not a reason, but there are multiple reasons why things happen as they do, and how they evolve, and how they move, and how they swim together like fish in the sea. And you are part of these events. And there are certain times through history where peak experiences have happened. In that same way, one of the laws of the universe is, what is in one is in the whole, how things are in the micro and the macro, as above, so below. Your life in that exact way has peak experiences that reshape the rest of your life. You don't live at the altitude. No one lives on peaks. You don't jump peak to peak to peak. I think I'll go from Everest to Kilimanjaro to here to there. No. You get to a peak, but it's so breathtaking you've got to get off again. And yet one peak, you reshape everything. You reshape everything. The same is true with evolution. There is a peak era. The Ice Age, for example, was a peak era, and it reshaped everything. There are other times, the plague was a peak era. But these peak eras, there are peak discoveries, penicillin, baby peaks, if you will, compared to the Ice Age. But still, the printing press, yet another peak. Galileo, another peak. These are mountain peaks. We could call them peaks on the mountain ranges that reshape humanity. Yet, none are equal to what's happening now. Why? While the printing press brought literacy, awakened, and what did literacy do? It opened up in the intellectual field, and that allowed for the Reformation and ideas. And my God, you have no idea what that printing press did. Still, the printing press and all that it opened up in the intellectual world, and thought, science, medicine, philosophy, schools, universities, everything because of it. Everything is nothing compared to what's going on now. Nothing pales. Take all the accomplishments since the Renaissance, and it's nothing compared to what we're living right now. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. So let me bring you into how to position. I need you up in the penthouse now. So what you're going to just sit back and think, how do I even frame this moment in time that I am living in? How do I frame it? How do I even think about what is going on that I'm living in as I look at a world in which I have lived through going from regular mail to the capacity to reach 1 million people in 5 minutes or 3 minutes or 1. The capacity when I was of having a significant relationship to now in a world where it is nothing, not even thought of, to have 30 sexual partners in a month. That intimacy itself has been completely redefined, if not dismissed. That in this world, the young people guard their computer password with more sacredness than the space between their legs. And that adults look at that as, what are you going to do? that the entire power system and power structure of ritual has been completely dismantled. Completely dismantled. Never before in history has a society dismantled its ritual raising of its young. This is a first. This is a first. So let's take a look at the extraordinary, these are the indicators of how severe transformation, of the threads of transformation. Okay. I'm just giving you a preview of how you look at, like, these are the threads of the fabric that indicate there's nothing left of the society. No wonder it's collapsing. There's nothing here. It's like the society is like a Ponzi scheme. Okay? If you think that there's what they always call the fabric of society, it's not here anymore. And that's what people feel. They feel like, I'm not sure what's holding us together anymore. And that's what people feel, is that I'm not sure what's holding us together. There is something holding, but it's not the old way. Are you following me here? And it's like that horrific realization that there's nothing familiar that's holding us together anymore. Not churches, not community, nothing like it used to be. So, when did all of this start? Where is all of it going? What's it mean for everybody else? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The way I'd like to approach this then is through history and how that triggers an understanding of what's happening. You know, everybody probably knows that my favorite study is war. And war and God, and the two of these subjects together. But one of the reasons I really, really, really love the study of war and always have is because war is the greatest change agent in the physical world. It determines everything, absolutely everything. Even all the medicine you take comes from war research and pharmacology and the pharmacology industry. Everything, absolutely everything. Every country is formed as a result of war. All the power bases as a result of war. You feel safe in America because of war, and that would be World War II, and then the Cold War, and then the nuclear power that this nation is. Everything about your safe life is because of war, because we will go to war, because we're in war, because we can beat people at war. Everything is about war, and that's all there's to it. But the greatest change agent of war, and I would just want to hold it, the whole world is being reshaped now again because of war. The Middle East and our nation has gone bankrupt because of war. So make no mistake, your future once again has been reshaped because of war. And yes?
Is war in the penthouse?
What?
Is war in the penthouse? Like, how does that look?
No, but how you understand war as an archetypal necessity is something I want you to see from the Penthouse, okay? Like, will we always have war? Yes. Why do we have war? I'll explain. What's its role in the formation? I'll explain. So how I want you to understand war comes from the Penthouse. Because we'll always have it. We'll never have peace. It's not possible. Archetypally, psychically, it's simply not possible. It's the archetypes we have in the human experience make it impossible for us to have peace. We don't want peace. We don't want peace. I mean, you have to look in your own life, and what is in one is in the whole. Look at your own life. Can you live your own life for 1 month without a fight? Without being aggressive towards someone? You are the molecules that make war. So you have to look at yourself and say, can I get through my life without being angry, without attacking someone in words, thoughts, actions, resentment? I am the person that contributes to the psychic free radicals that create energy, that creates war. I am part of the transitionary force that is the engine of change that makes war. This is a penthouse view. Where do my psychic free radicals go that form the law of energy? Energy creates matter. My loose psychic free radicals pour into a big vat that then creates events. And those events are positive and negative, and et cetera, et cetera. Are you with me? Okay. I'll get to that in a minute. The other side of that is prayer. Prayer dissolves psychic free radicals, so we'll get to that. Okay. But I need to enter into this. I could get so distracted because I find this so fascinating, and I now teach like a hologram, so you got to catch up with me. I had my own moment of one of those aha moments when I was reading Winston Churchill. And I just saw his war rooms in London a few weeks ago, which for me was like falling down the rabbit hole. I could have been there they could have just left me there. Joyce and I went to the war rooms underneath by the houses, by the War Department in London, where Churchill ran World War II. And I was in one of those time zones where I was once again saturating myself in World War II. And I was particularly reading a lot of work about Churchill. And I thought about the way in which Churchill saw Hitler. Now, all of this is going to make a lot of sense, so you just bear with me. I know probably you haven't heard a lecture like this all that often. But Churchill was somebody who had a real respect for evil. So that's one of the words you want to hold on to, is the word evil. Because that's a word that we do not often use now. And can you get that, Tracy? Okay. And so when he was dealing with Hitler, he absolutely knew that he was dealing with an aggressive, I'm going to kind of almost draw this out. He knew that he was dealing with an aggressive agent, a dark force. 1, 2, 3 chakras, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Your first, second, and third, we all know, this is your literal world, this is your interior world, and this is your mystical, transcendent world. From history point of view, Churchill knew that he was dealing with evil in the physical world. He knew it. I mean, there's the Third Reich, etc. But he also knew that he was dealing with evil in the mystical sense. He knew it. He absolutely knew it. And so what he did was he gathered together people that he believed could deal with evil in the mystical sense. He had a secret room, most secret room. And in there he had magicians and criminals, the best criminals. He said the best criminal minds are criminals. He had mystery writers. He had illusionists. This is where Ian Fleming worked, who eventually wrote 007. That was his code number to get in. And these people were the people that came up with the greatest illusions and deceptions of World War II. Now, when I was reading this, one thought occurred to me was that at the end of World War II, everything suddenly changed. It wasn't slowly. It was instant. What I am referring to is that at the end of World War II, there was an almost instantaneous detachment from the role evil plays in the governments of human beings and in the governance of it, in the role that darkness plays in the exterior activities of human beings and in the interior activities. It's as if something happened that caused people to detach from the role darkness played. It's as if it almost went into a stratosphere, and we went into a very different path, a path that eventually led to what we could say the birth of the New Age, which came into the 1960s. And in the 1960s, a new language erupted on the scenes. You're a product. We are a product of that language. We began to talk about things like holism, and in the 60s, it was all about light and love, the age of Aquarius, words we never said that didn't exist before. We started to talk about the fact that the world was going to have this vision of being wondrous and happy and loving, and all of this blather started pouring out of people, just pouring out of people. All of this, one could say, seventh chakra highs. All of this, they were high, just like in the seventh chakra. All of this, and they got high. Because that's exactly, the mind got spiritually high. Everything was about getting high. The music was that. Look at the words then. The word high is used constantly in 6th and 7th chakra words in the music of the 60s. Very high, that's the altitude. And it was a world in which the idea that there was any kind of darkness, either operating in the outside world or in the inside, was simply unacceptable. Simply unacceptable. It was absolutely unacceptable. Now, something very interesting happened right about here, which is 59 to 62, 5. And that's that two events of great importance happened here that factor into triggering transformation in the global sense. And that's that the Dalai Lama was kicked out of Tibet and Vatican II. So these two, and you're in the Penthouse now. I need you in the Penthouse so that you're looking at all things for their symbolic value. You're looking at all things, all things. And from the Penthouse, you understand that there's no such thing. It doesn't exist as things that are not choreographed. Everything's choreographed. Everything is choreographed. Things do not just happen. You did not just happen. You did not fall from heaven like an apple from a tree. Everything is choreographed. The Dalai Lama fled Tibet. At the first chakra, the events appear tragic. First chakra war, the events appear tragic. Death, slaughter. The first chakra, cancer in your body, is a war. Cells are slaughtered. Organs are taken over like nations, consumed in warfare. Bombarded with medicine. Like the Blitz in London, bombarded day after day after day until your joints are on fire like the East End of London. Your body is a war zone. And that's what it looks like from the first chakra. Which is why if you don't engage all forces in you, you cannot ever get a glimpse of what is actually happening. You will lock into one, you will stay there, and it will consume you. And in the language of Buddha, the first world is hell. And if you stay in the first world, you will stay in hell. If you stay in world 1 and 2, we'll go through these worlds, you will stay in only what suits you, and you will still be consumed in hell, because you will make it all about you. Okay. The Dalai Lama leaves. If you understand that from a mystical point of view, it was an event perfectly timed to introduce Eastern, to open up the East. Vatican II happens. And Christian mysticism is released to the world. So we have Eastern and Western released to the world within 5 years of each other. How outrageous. And just a few years earlier, in 48, the end of the diaspora, Israel is born. The Nag Hammadi and Dead Sea Scrolls are found. So within a very short period of time, very short, these great spiritual traditions are all rebooted in a high cosmic place. All of them are anointed into the third column, into the Aquarian force. That's extraordinary. It's extraordinary. They're all booted into Aquarian forces. The Gospel of Mary Magdalene begins to move around. And I'm going to roll you back and say, how did this happen? How did we go from one level of consciousness to another? Where was that pivotal moment? What was the turning point, the tipping point that set us into what we would call in this column quantum consciousness, mystical consciousness, nuclear consciousness? Because that's what this column is. And that's when Oppenheimer split the atom. And I am never able to explain to people with mere words the depth to which I want them to understand the meaning of this and the significance. In the physical world, you think of a scientist in a laboratory in the Manhattan Project, and what he's doing is creating nuclear fusion and splitting atoms. So it looks as though he's just there in his big laboratory and doing this project. But from the penthouse, you in the penthouse, you looking through the lens of truth, not what's true, but truth, where you understand, where you actually are conscious of the law, what a person does to anything, to a flower, to anything, it is somehow, in some way, wait. This is not a pumpkin. Wait. I can do this. This is latitude and longitude. This is your hologram, and here you are. Here you are. Here you are on the grid. Here you are. This is your grid. So this is actually a circle. And you are in, this is your grid. What is in one is in the whole. You pick a flower leaf, and all flowers feel this in some vibrational way simultaneously. All flowers. This is now the atom that Oppenheimer split. So he splits the atom in the Manhattan Project, but all atoms are split simultaneously. He's not splitting one, he's splitting all on the grid of life simultaneously. Like a priest at Mass who offers the host in transformation. This is a big deal here, people. And says, on behalf, I offer this ritual. And grace comes in and transforms this piece of bread, but it's not bread. I'm not pushing, like trying to recruit you as Catholics or Christians, but this is transformed into a carrier pigeon for a force greater than oneself. It becomes a vessel. But he doesn't need every host. He needs one, because what is in one immediately is transferred to all. Whether there was a basket of 40 hosts or 4 million would not matter. What is in one is in my body. My body. What is in one is in my body. All 4 million hosts, 40 million, or 400 billion, it would not matter. Do this to me, and I will take care of the grace goes instantaneously. Are you following me? When Oppenheimer split the host, all hosts split simultaneously. When he split the atom, he split your atoms too. And he split the atom in every single thing. Now, this is absolutely critical to understand this as you understand what's happening to you and all the nuclear illnesses that have everything. From that point on, as people entered the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, one of the telltale signs of our time is that we have a very different relationship with time. One of the telltale signs of our society is that we don't know where time has gone. We actually hire people to be time managers. Go find me some time. Because we have a very different relationship with time. We have a pathological fear of aging, which is something they did not have pre-World War II. The difference between who we are before World War II and who we are now is two different species entirely. We are not the same species. Pre-World War II, we took time to communicate, to be with people. We took time, and the aging process was far more organic. Everything was organic and natural. And tribes took care of their own and they moved very differently. Following World War II, what has happened is that we have I'm going to go just back a little bit. In all the other changed periods of history, World War I was gargantuan, the war to end all wars. The plague, the Renaissance, whatever. Any of the events we can name in Western history or even Eastern history. But none of these periods of time, whether it was feasts and famine and droughts and earthquakes and fires and all the things that have ever happened to humanity, none of them has ever had the impact of the moment we are living now, because none of them has had first of all, none of them has positioned us in a psychic age. None. None of them has positioned us to have more capacity to change things or network with the entire grid of humanity, both spiritually, intuitively, and technically at the same time. There has never been such a moment as the moment we are living. Never. There has never been such a moment for the individual human being to come to such a moment of self-realization with such an abundance of spiritual support outside of a monastery. And in doing that, understand what the great masters like Teresa of Avila or other great masters have said, which is what you do to one, you will do to others. Heal one, and you've healed the whole. It is not for you to understand. Is that true? That really true? Shut up. Just learn and do. Learn and do. Become this vessel. Become this force. It's time that people actually begin to trust that the cost to you of learning and becoming everything that you really are has what it takes to literally illuminate the grid. And maybe this transition we're going through, this transformation we're going through, can be done without a nuclear holocaust, can be done to minimize the suffering that we are going through, that maybe will be elevated to a position where humanity will have a generous enough heart to where someone will be able to be inspired of how to create solar fuel in a way that really works. And what I mean by that is this. The best way I could tell you that is if you look back in 1929, here again, I want you in the Penthouse. This is how you understand history. 29, the market crashes in the United States. From here, this is the symbolic dynamics of events. The market crashes in October 29. It's right around the corner. Over here in the physical world, the first chakra, where people actually live, where you see them. If you read the newspapers, if you read all of that, the way people started to talk was they said they were crippled economically. The society was crippled economically. And right after that, in the 30s, they had the first polio epidemic. And a society will produce an epidemic to reflect the health of its psyche and soul. It always does. But Jonas Salk was prevented from discovering the vaccine for polio until after World War II again. But it wasn't until that point where America felt empowered, and if you read the newspapers, as I have, in the language of the 40s, in the early 50s, America described itself as, quote, being on its feet again. Being on its feet again. We had even elected a president who had polio, Roosevelt, who had gotten us into the war. He hid it. A lot of Americans didn't know that. They were far more respectful then and not like the paparazzi jackasses they are today, and they would have exposed him and humiliated him. They were still respectful. Yes?
Do you think autism is the new epidemic for this?
Do I think autism is one? Well, yeah, but I think, you know, I think, Deborah, it's that there's so many disorders of this vibrational. They're time and space disorders. And it's difficult if you think of this as the neurology, think of your head like this. And that's that we have yet, you know, we talk of ourselves as being more sensitive, more attuned, et cetera, et cetera. But the fact is we have a lot more wires now that are being plugged in. But we don't know what those wires are running. And as a result of not knowing what those wires are running, we actually don't know how to protect ourselves. We don't know what. And that's number one. Number two is we think that our food is safe, but it's not. And we think that organic food is organic, but it's not. There isn't any water that's actually clean. It's filled with drugs that people dump into bottled water companies are really getting their water from local lakes. We all know that. So there's just nothing that's actually what it says they are. Okay, nothing. Fish is contaminated because of being in the waters that it comes from. Vegetables, I mean, you can't, and remember, you just can't grasp how contaminated everything is from pharmaceutical dumping, from waste dumping. I mean, it is unbelievable. No wonder kids today have allergies. Peanuts are grown in the same field that the next year they grow cotton in, so they put heavy-duty fertilizer in there, and then they take it out, and the next year it's peanuts, and so these kids are poisoned with all this. I know we were never poisoned with that because they didn't use that crap then when we were growing up. So we have much healthier immune systems in our generation than even people 15 years younger than us, and because we didn't have all that crap. But now, and number two is, I don't think the brain should have all that stimulation so young with all that at all. I don't. I think that they're finding that it's going to take a while for the brain to get used to all that coming at. And these parents that use electronics as babysitters. And I think that's probably very damaging. So that's another factor. I think it probably is. And I don't buy this idea that these children are indigo because I happen to know that person made that up. So
my field, among other things, is popular culture. And everything that Carolyn's been talking about, you can track with popular culture. Before Oppenheimer, Norman Rockwell. After Oppenheimer, Jackson Pollock. Before, what you've got, there's, in the late 1940s, there was a movie that won all the awards called The Best Years of Our Lives.
Oh, is that the war movie with the
The war movie where they're trying to put, all the king's horses and all the king's men can't put back together the people who come back from the war. Before World War II, you never saw, before Oppenheimer, you never saw film noir. You had detective stories, but you didn't have people driven by demons. And you take probably one of the most archetypal movies in our culture is It's a Wonderful Life. They take what looks like a family movie, and at its core, it's a film noir. And the camera angles they show on Jimmy Stewart when he's going mad are Hitchcockian. It's coming at him. It's spooky. You can hear in the music, you can track all of this, the cultural changes in the music, in the movies, in paintings, and in television. Carolyn was talking about Churchill and evil, and how he hired all these illusionists. Every major business and every company and culture are country has illusionists to project an illusion of what is, and it has nothing to do with what is. And what you've got, if you look at H.G. Wells, one of the scariest movies I've ever seen, one of my favorites was the 1950s versus 60s version of The Time Machine, where he goes into the future and he sees all these people bouncing around looking like Clairol ads, these gorgeous Yvette Mimieux kind of people. And then he goes into this temple-looking building, and it's the library, and he touches it, and all the books turn to dust, and he realizes that all of these beautiful young people that look like all the commercials we watch on TV are being raised as cattle for people under the ground. So these metaphors, this notion of the illusions, and it's funny you were talking about pharmaceuticals. This time a week ago, I was teaching an archetypal intensive to, I think I told you this, pharmaceutical change agents who were stunned to find out they thought they were there to do the changing, and they found themselves being changed and were having crises. They were in crisis about it. And the movie that they asked me to show is The Avengers. Now, you've been with me through a lot of movies, some of you, including The Dark Knight, but I never thought I'd teach The Avengers. But as I'm listening to you talk about this, all of the Avengers are aberrations. And at one point, Iron Man looks at Captain America and says, everything you are comes out of a bottle. Like Lance Armstrong. All of his power comes out of stuff, experimental drugs they gave him to make him a superpower. Iron Man doesn't have a heart. He has a mechanical device here. The Hulk was trying to experiment with the growth hormone that created Captain America, and he explodes into rage, and he can't destroy himself. He tries. When the normal guy tries to destroy himself, the Hulk comes in and spits the bullets out. It's thinking of this in terms of what you're saying. They're all outcasts. They're all called together. None of them like each other. None of them want to be there. And they are fighting the evil that the rest of the world is unaware is going on. It's blowing my mind to listen to this morning, because I thought the Avengers, but there are 4 chapters in the middle of the Avengers that are exactly what we're talking about this morning.
Don't make me watch that.
I won't. Just those 4 chapters.
Okay.
Carol, at one time, we were doing Entering the Castle, and I showed the movie Little Miss Sunshine, and I used the Volkswagen bus as an image of the cocoon that people are in going in transformation, that they're all stuck in there. And Carolyn says, everybody's talking about Little Miss Sunshine. I want to see it. She said they were understanding the cocoon and transformation. And she goes, how much she watches it. She comes back the next morning. They'll believe anything you tell them.
I mean,
So,
really.
I know.
Really.
But pay attention to the culture. Pay attention to the culture that came out around Vatican II and following it and what happened. Notice that look at how the Beatles brought the Maharishi in, and you have meditation and yoga and all of this that wasn't, and that was 4 years after those guys that you were talking about.
Right.
So it's phenomenal
See,
to watch the culture.
Since World War II, we've gotten the new frontier has become the world behind our eye. Inner space and outer space has become the new frontier, our inner space. I'm going to give us a break, but when we come back, I have a number of questions I'm going to ask you to thoughtfully answer. we're going to go inside you, because you have to, and then, I want you to share with others, because as we begin to go down into the journey of transformation, I think it's important to weave your life together with what's happening in the outside world, with what's happening in people in your life, just to push yourself out so you have this sense that everything around me is transforming with me, around me, in me, that I am moving like in a school of fish here. Things are happening. It's not just to me. It's not just in me. That one of the pain journey, the turning point that I have to get to, I'm not sure if today, maybe who, is the breaking out of being a narcissist. and the comfort zone of being a narcissist, which everybody has, because that is the characteristic that defines our times. We have made ourselves our spiritual journey. And the shift, that critical transition in transformation, is the shattering of that part of you and the placement of you once again into the whole, which requires you re-mythologizing yourself. Okay, it requires that you re-mythologize, that you redefine or re-mythologize. You crush when you say, who am I? I don't know who I am anymore. There's a re-mythologizing of yourself. Where do I belong now? Who am I now? I was strong. Maybe I'm fragile. Maybe I was, it's like what you sometimes see when parents, when the kids go and they have the empty nest syndrome. Parents have to re-mythologize. Who am I now? Who am I now? That's kind of a mini re-mythologizing. But then there's the maximum re-mythologizing. When somebody, for example, opens themselves up to a new task, which requires truth, and they find out, oh my God, this world really is on fire. This world really is suffering. And they keep drinking that information in. And then you realize my mythology that everything is going to be okay is gone. Everything is not going to be okay. What's the mythology that you have to use to replace that? I have children. What about them? We grew up on a fairy tale that says everything's okay in the end, and if it's not okay, it's not the end. So everything's going to be okay. Well, that mythology doesn't hold up anymore, okay? We have to re-mythologize. Is it going to be okay if we do what? Maybe there's an if clause. Are you see what I'm saying here? But that critical shift is kind of the conversion experience. We have to convert to something. And that's transformation. Okay, but if anyone can do it, it's the CMED group. Okay, guys, let's go have a cup of tea.